Today is a very different day because we're going to be talking about death and divorce. And with women, it's more of a different conversation we have because women need to be independent and not dependent on their spouse. So that's the first point I want to clarify is you must understand financial affairs yourself from your perspective. And you must also, when a death happens, you must ensure that your will is up to date. So from a Citadel perspective, we look at your will on an 18-month period and we ensure that it's still valid and appropriate. The second point that I want to talk about is financial independence, that you understand the affairs that go on with your spouse or with anyone else ultimately, and you take control of that. And it's important that you understand how much money you need for the rest of your life. So from our perspective, we can put a number on what is needed to sustain your current standard of living. ANCs, marriage contracts, are very important because when you get married, we must determine how are you married. So when you get divorced, it's either you're married in community or out of community of property. And how does that affect you from a financial perspective? And that's one of the points that we need to understand on an ongoing basis as you get married. So that's important, and you must understand the implications of being married in or out of community of property. So if and how it affects you from a tax perspective, divorce and death perspective, because it's important to know how much money you're paying away. So that's another important tip. But one thing I must highlight to you is you need to know your finances as well as possible and understand how it's structured. So money is viewed from our perspective very differently. We view money in 4 different silos. The one being lifestyle. What money do you need to pay for your house, your cars, and to continue your standard of living? That must be paid for cash. Then what we call OPM, other people's money. Money in your lifetime you might not spend, but that's the will. So when your husband passes away, you need to understand how you're receiving that money and how it's going to be structured and invested. Also an offshore trust or local trust or any other vehicle that your money is housed. So that's because it's being passed from generation to generation that it is important to talk about structuring. Then what we look at, what makes you wealthier? Wealth creation. It's going to make you wealthier and it gets your involvement. However, if you're dependent on somebody else, you're reliant on them to make you bring the money in, which is quite a challenge because you are not in control of your own finances. And that's important, just control your finances. Then what we call wealth preservation, money that needs to be preserved. And this is where Citadel comes in, is we are objective. We look after your money, we're not emotional about your own affairs. So we are very clinical, and when it comes to investments, we understand the markets. So we're not governed by fear, sentiment, or what was inherited from our late families. We actually understand the situation and make an informed decision. We also only get paid by our clients, so that's important from an advice perspective. You never want to be in a position where somebody's selling you a product because ultimately they're going to bombard you with all different products that you need, but they're not giving you the right advice and aligning the interests with you. So from our perspective is we would have loved to have met you before you got divorced or before death because you would have got familiar with us. We would have built up a long-term relationship with you and you would have understood our philosophy and how we're going to manage your money going forward. But that's fine because we can walk the journey with you, and that's what we do with our clients. We're not here to sell you anything, we're here to develop this long-term relationship. And we're here to educate you. So that's what our aim is and what my aim is, to tell you how your money is invested and explain why we're doing it. Not this is how it's done and that's it. It's a proper explanation, and when things change within your investment or your structures, we talk about it. So I look forward to meeting with you next time, and if you need anything, please feel free to contact me.